My House of Horrors Chapter 551 to 560. After listening to the doctor, Chen Ge understood that the passengers on the hearse all had their own unspeakable past. They had secrets buried in their hearts, and the reason they had taken the bus to the last stop at midnight was because they were searching for that sliver of hope. They were a group of pitiful people, and Chen Ge was considering whether he should tell them the truth or not. If he did not tell them, they might still have hope and try their best to survive. But if he did, these passengers might break down because they had lost their last hope. The last stop of the bus is Liwan City. It is a place influenced by the world behind the door. It is filled with despair and evil. All their efforts are destined to be in vain. I cannot watch them fall deeper and deeper. Those who have sacrificed so much should be treated kindly by life. Quote. Telling them the truth would only cause them to break down, but if he gave them new hope, it would be a different story. After giving it some thought, Chen Ge decided to use his own method to help them. What are you thinking about? The doctor asked softly when he saw Chen Ge suddenly spacing out. Chen Ge did not answer. His mind was spinning, and in a few seconds, the stories of Wang Qi, Xu Yin, and Dr. Gao appeared in his mind. The things that they had experienced, he could use any one of them to fool the doctor. It's fine if you can't tell me. Perhaps we'll meet again on this bus in the future. The man's eyes scanned Chen Ge, and his lips moved. This is your first time taking this bus, right? Yes. Chen Ge nodded. The doctor nudged closer to Chen Ge, and he lowered his voice to a whisper. When we get there, if someone asks you to choose between giving and accepting, remember, you have to choose accepting. What do you mean? Chen Ge very sensitively noticed that something was wrong. I want to find my friend, but I need to give and endure something else. Brother, what is at the last stop? Quote. The doctor slowly turned his head around to look around before he said, there is a ghost apartment in that small town. Inside the apartment, you can hear the voices of the people that you want to meet. To find them, you have to pay a certain price. Chen Ge memorized what the doctor said. The man had revealed a very important clue. There was a ghost apartment in Liwan City. He lowered his voice as well. Brother, I just want to see my friends. Do I have to pay a price just to see them? There is no one-sided gain in this world. To see your friends, you have to bear something or pay a price. The doctor did not appear to be a bad person. He removed his gloves and peeled back his sleeves. There were red threads tied around his thin arms. These are used to ward off evil spirits. Every time I enter the ghost apartment, I choose to shoulder the burden. When I come out from the ghost apartment, it feels like my shoulders are very heavy, like something is crawling on my back and following me out. Chen Ge understood what the man meant by, accept responsibility. No wonder the doctor's body was radiating coldness and weakness. The culprit was using these despairing people to raise ghosts, using them as vessels for the ghosts. This was similar to the members of the Society of Strange Tales, but there was a difference. These passengers did not know that their bodies had become the ghosts, home and their emotions had become the ghosts, food. They did not have the power to control the ghosts, so they could only accept it passively. That was easier to control. Then what do you mean by, accept? Why won't you let me choose that? Quote. The idiot father next to me chose to accept responsibility. Initially, you only need to give your nails and hair, but the more you choose, the scarier the things you have to give, like your teeth, fingers, your conscience, and the beautiful side of humanity. The doctor's voice was very soft. If not for Chen Ge's ghost ear, he would not have been able to hear him. Even conscience can be sacrificed. It will make you go to the small town to do things like steal, rob, or even kill certain things. After you choose to accept responsibility, you will realize that you are becoming less and less like yourself. The doctor saw the curious look on Chen Ge's face. He did not seem to be afraid at all, so he was too lazy to explain. You only need to remember, those who chose to give everything, after they gave everything, they never walked out of that building again. So, they have given themselves away. Without conscience, humanity, and memory, they had already lost themselves in the process of giving. Chen Ge felt like these people were similar to the murderers in the game. They were filled with malice, aggressive, and dangerous. If the small town in the game represents the world behind Liwan City's door, then those who chose to accept responsibility would be sent into the door. Those who chose to accept responsibility would become the vessel for the monsters behind the door and be slowly consumed. Those who chose to accept responsibility would become the monsters behind the door. Chen Ge compared the Society of Strange Tales and the culprit in eastern Zhejiang. The Society of Strange Tales had people control the monsters to study how to control the door, but the situation in eastern Zhejiang was completely different. The culprit seemed to be using the monsters to control the people and then to feed the door, making the door that was already out of control harder to close. If Dr. Gao was a person who had reached the peak of rationality and madness, then the culprit in eastern Zhejiang was a completely hysterical ghost. It did not see people as human beings. It trampled on the good things in the world, and it was completely twisted. This is a scary opponent. After conversing with the doctor, Chen Ge understood many things, and he slowly calmed down. The shadow at the fresh water plant was able to fight against the half-recovered Zhang Ya. Is the shadow really a greater red specter? Before this, Chen Ge would run whenever he saw a red specter, but as Shuyin and Bai Cholan grew up, he had finally overcome his fear of red specters, but then something even weirder appeared. He could not confirm the opponent's power level. Thinking about how his parents had disappeared in eastern Zhejiang, Chen Ge suddenly felt that something was wrong. He looked at the battery-powered bus that was parked in the middle of the aisle and grumbled softly, "Have I been too high-profile recently?" The woman in the red raincoat was also a red specter, but even though she knew that her child might be on the bus, she did not dare take one step into it. This indirectly reflected the terror of the culprit. To be able to scare a red specter like this, I need to reassess the opponent's power level. Chen Ge grumbled alone in his seat. The doctor next to him thought that he was scared by what he had said, so he comforted him softly. As long as you choose to accept the responsibility, it will be fine. Before you reach your limit, perhaps you will be able to see her. The doctor's wish was simple. Chen Ge did not want to see the man walk into the abyss like that, so he decided to use his own method to save these people. Actually, I know another way to see them, and it does not require so much sacrifice. What is it? The doctor's brows rose slightly. He was interested in what Chen Ge had to say. Turning to look at the doctor, Chen Ge said, "Have you heard of the Society of Strange Tales?" "What's that?" The doctor frowned. Just from the name, he felt like this society was not that friendly. It's a mutual aid society. Just like us, the members have their own stories. Chen Ge originally wanted to say it was a mutual aid society for mental patients, but afraid of giving a bad first impression, he changed it at the last minute. I'm not used to being in a crowded place. Various rumors had forced the death of his loved one, and from then on, the doctor refused to communicate with others. The reason he had spoken so much to Chen Ge on the bus was because he had a hunch that the people on the bus had a worse story than he did. The doctor rejected him in a roundabout way, and Chen Ge did not force him. After all, anyone who heard about such a strange society would have to wait and see. If one day, your body really can't take it anymore, but you still wish to see your wife, you can call me. Chen Ge left his phone number with the doctor. The doctor thought that was weird, but he still memorized Chen Ge's number. Brother, you mentioned earlier that there's a ghost apartment in Liwan City. Do you mind telling me more about it? Chen Ge wanted to get more information from the doctor, and that was helping the doctor, so Chen Ge did not feel guilty. You'll need to enter the small town to find that apartment, and sometimes, the doctor was halfway through his sentence when the bus suddenly came to a screeching halt. All the passengers leaned forward, and his words were cut off. The e-bike swayed and tilted to the side. It knocked into a woman in a patient's garb with her head lowered. Her black hair completely covered her face, and her facial features could not be seen. When the e-bike knocked into her body, she maintained her posture and did not move. Did I hurt you? Chen Ge quickly moved to steady the e-bike. He looked at the four women sitting in the middle of the bus, tilted his head, and slowly squatted down. He wanted to see the four women's faces to confirm their identities. With one hand on the scooter and the other on the back of the seat, Chen Ge adjusted his angle, but he still could not see the women's faces. The four patients appeared to have hair growing from the back of their heads to the front of their faces. However, Chen Ge did not come up empty-handed. He saw the hospital's name on the female patient's gown. There were 4 words on it, but she couldn't see the first word clearly. The last 3 words were, Heart Hospital. Chen Ge scanned through the local hospitals in Zhejiang. The more famous ones were Central Hospital, People's Hospital, and Zhejiang Maternity and Child Hospital. He had never heard of any hospital with the word Xin in their name. Why did they leave the hospital in the middle of the night? These 4 female patients were definitely not alive. When Chen Ge approached them, his hair stood on end instinctively. He was already used to this feeling. 4 ghosts sitting together, why would they go to Liwan City? Chen Ge had figured out the reason why the living had gone to Liwan City, but Chen Ge still had no idea why the dead had gone to Liwan City. I've already stuck my face close to her hair, but why haven't they reacted? At least take a look at me. Ghosts were different from living humans. They could not be brought back to the haunted house. They had to be observed and understood for a long time before they could be allowed to stay inside the haunted house. Just as Chen Ge was about to get more information from the 4 female patients, the announcement came from inside the bus. They had arrived at the next stop. The door opened, and the rain was blown into the bus by the cold wind. It landed on Chen Ge's back. It's raining so hard already. The weather forecast is so bad. Chen Ge turned around. He looked at the stop outside the bus. With just one glance, he was unable to move his eyes away. The rain poured down, and a woman in a red raincoat stood alone in the middle of the bus stop. The rain slid down the brim of her hat, and it drenched her hair. It was you who called me that day. Chen Ge stood inside the bus and looked at the woman outside. Hearing this familiar voice, the woman in the red raincoat slowly raised her lowered head. A pair of strange eyes looked at Chen Ge through the gap of her long hair. I promised to help you find your child within a week, and that's why I risked my life on this bus. I have not forgotten my promise to you. Chen Ge's voice was convincing. The way the woman in the red raincoat looked at Chen Ge was different from how she looked at Xiao Jiyu. She stood where she was and did not take another step forward. The announcement came from inside the bus. The driver, Tang Jun, looked at Chen Ge communicating with the woman in the red raincoat through the rear view mirror, and cold sweat poured down his face. He pressed the button to close the back door and hurried to the next stop. Wait a minute. When the back door was about to close, Chen Ge stuck his backpack in the middle of the door. I still have something to deal with. That is not a good idea. Everyone is on the same bus. You can't make everyone wait for you, right? The driver was worried about what Chen Ge would do. Whenever he heard Chen Ge's voice, he would panic. You still know it's a bus. Then why didn't you let me get on the bus earlier? Chen Ge walked to the front of the bus. He did not make things difficult for the driver but stopped next to the middle-aged woman. At that moment, everyone on the bus was looking at Chen Ge, wondering what he was going to do. Do you need something? The middle-aged woman moved deeper into the seat, and her voice involuntarily lowered. Chen Ge did not waste time with her. He was not the type to waste time. Since the woman in the red raincoat had already appeared, there was no need to drag this out any longer. Is the boy next to you your child? Chen Ge rarely used such a tone. There was no emotion in it, and it sounded quite scary. Yes, yes. The middle-aged woman stood before Chen Ge and the boy to stop Chen Ge from getting close to the boy. I'll ask you again, is this your child? Under the shocked gaze of everyone on the bus, Chen Ge took out the hammer from his backpack. The middle-aged woman looked at the driver and the other passengers with pleading eyes, but no one dared to speak. Her mouth fell open, and after a long hesitation, she said, "This is my relative's child. Their whole family works in Zhejiang, and they are very busy, so I'm the one taking care of the child." So, it's your relative's child again. Chen Ge swung the hammer. Wake the child up. I have a few questions to ask him. The commotion was loud, but the child remained asleep, and there was no sign of him waking up. The middle-aged woman looked troubled. She pushed the boy a few times, but the boy did not respond. The child is quite a sleeper. Is it a sleeper? Or did you give him some kind of medicine? Chen Ge gripped the hammer with one hand. Let me take a look at the child. Quote. The middle-aged woman's panicked face slowly lowered, and her expression was changing. She seemed to know that she could not escape this. Her hand reached into her pocket like she was going to take something out. Shu Yin. Chen Ge did not give her any chance. When he noticed the change in the woman's expression, he called for Shu Yin. I'll say it one last time. Give me the child. Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. Today is really a memorable day. The 100 Alliances, thank you. Right now, our book has 101 Alliance Masters. The number of views has exceeded 100 million, and the average number of subscriptions has exceeded 50,000. There are more than 344,000 comments and chapters. Our book only has 1.17 million words. That translates to an average of one comment for every 3 words. That's really awesome. The second review of the physical book has passed, and the manga's copyright is being pushed forward. There's also a game company that contacted me, hoping to cooperate. Finally, the application form for the Great Gods has been submitted to the editor some time ago. Right now, I don't know what to say. I just want to thank you. Thank you, Alliance Masters, and thank you to all the readers that have accompanied me as I write. Right now, there's a large porcelain bowl next to my keyboard, and I've poured half a bottle of beer into it. Actually, I really don't know how to talk to people. Right now, there's only one word in my head. Thank you, and then I hope that everyone will get better and better, and that everyone can be happy every day. I'm done talking, and I'm done. The rest of what I want to say is all in the beer. I have a haunted house latest chapter address. I have a haunted house full text reading address skeptical smiley face 72173. I have a haunted house txt download address skeptical smiley face 72173. I have a haunted house mobile text reading address skeptical smiley face 72173. For convenience of reading next time, you can click on the collect button below to record this 100 Alliances competition. Read the record, and you can see it the next time you open the bookshelf. If you like, I Have a Haunted House, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Opening parenthesis closing parenthesis. The inside of the bus became colder and more depressing. It felt like something was standing next to Chen Ge, but he could not see it clearly. The middle-aged woman slowly took her hands out from her pocket, and her body was shaking. Without waiting for Chen Ge to say anything, she voluntarily placed the boy on the seat outside. Chen Ge picked up the boy from the seat. There was warmth, and he could feel the beating of the boy's heart. The boy was a living person. Why would the middle-aged woman bring the boy to Eastern Zhejiang? Did they think the boy would be more likely to become a door pusher? Chen Ge had seen many tragedies in Eastern Zhejiang, and the main characters of these tragedies were all children. Chen Ge had no idea why this was happening. At the back door of the bus, Chen Ge did not get off and did not hand the boy over to the woman in the red raincoat. He once heard from Fan Kong that when he played the game, there was an ending where Xiao Biyu was taken away by the woman in the red raincoat. The woman in the red raincoat should not be Xiao Bu's mother, but in the end, she still took Xiao Biyu away. She probably treated Xiao Biyu as a replacement for her own child. Chen Ge did not know whether this ending was good or bad. Compared to death, it was a better ending, but it was not fair to Xiao Biyu. The situation that he was facing was similar to the situation in the game. The boy was unconscious inside the bus, and no one knew whether he was the woman's child or not. If he handed him to the woman in the red raincoat, she probably would not reject him. In fact, she might even use the boy as a replacement. Holding the boy's face, Chen Ge turned to the woman in the rain and asked, "Is he your child?" The woman's gaze softened. She did not answer Chen Ge's question but took one step forward. Looks like he is not. Chen Ge kept his eyes on the woman in the red raincoat. A mother who had been waiting at the bus stop in the pouring rain would not be so calm after seeing her lost child. Chen Ge took a step back and placed the child on the seat beside him. The woman in the red raincoat saw Chen Ge place the child to the side, and a low voice came from her sewn mouth. The gentleness in her eyes instantly disappeared, and blood vessels poured out from the bottom of her eyes. They were so dense that it was scary. I only promised to help you find your child. I didn't say I would give you someone else's child. If this was 1 month ago, Chen Ge would not have dared to speak to a red specter like that. However, things were different now. He was standing on the hearse, and Shu Yin was beside him. Although Zhangya was injured, she was not in a deep sleep and could be woken up at any time. This was the source of his confidence. You look a little unhappy. Chen Ge leaned on the hammer and studied the woman in the raincoat. I'm curious. You knew your child might be in this car, so why didn't you come up to take a look? What are you afraid of? Quote. His sewn mouth was unable to make any sound. When his lips moved, the red blood vessels on them began to twist. The woman in the red raincoat was agitated, and one could see her pain and anger. You've been waiting at the bus stop, looking for your child. Did you get separated at the bus stop? You're injured, and after you lost your child, what happened to you while you were looking for him? Quote. Chen Ge's words caused the woman in the red raincoat to be reminded of the past. Painful memories flashed in her mind. The rain fell on her body, and when it landed on the ground, it had already turned into blood. In the rainy night, the woman stood alone at the bus stop, and the blood under her feet slowly spread. Green veins popped on her pale face. The woman lifted her face. She wanted to open her mouth, and the blood vessels that sealed her lips slowly opened. Her face was twisted, and she walked toward Chen Ge. Standing at the door, Chen Ge stood before the boy and looked at the woman in the red raincoat quietly. You're afraid. I can see the fear in your heart. It's not that you don't want to get on this bus, but you don't dare. You're worried about the real owner of this bus, aren't you? A living person so calmly expressed the fear in the red specter's heart. For the other passengers, this was a very scary thing. In the end, the woman in the red raincoat stopped at the door. She knew that the car belonged to someone. Stepping onto the car was taboo for that person. Your child disappeared on this bus, but due to some kind of taboo, you don't even have the courage to step on this bus. How are you going to find your child like that? With all the passengers watching, Chen Ge reached out his hand toward the woman in the red raincoat. Get on the bus, we'll look for him together. The blood that slid down the raincoat soaked the bus stop. The woman in the red raincoat stopped at the door of the bus, and her expression was conflicted. She was a red specter from eastern Zhejiang. Getting on the bus meant breaking a promise with the other ghosts, and she was going to stand against them. Chen Ge could see the anxiety and pain in the woman's eyes. He took one step forward and placed his hand lightly on the woman's shoulder. The rain soaked his clothes, but he did not seem to notice it. He looked straight into the woman's eyes. Don't hesitate anymore. I believe that when your child wakes up from his nightmare, he will also hope that the first person he sees when he opens his eyes is you. The driver kept looking at the back door through the rear view mirror. When he saw Chen Ge and the red specter outside the bus stop, his heart raced. His foot was already on the gas pedal. Once they started fighting, once Chen Ge left the bus, he would immediately run away from this place. However, things did not go as he expected. The woman in the red raincoat, who was about to lose control, slowly calmed down. She raised her hand and reached into the bus. This was something that had never happened before. The woman in the red raincoat had been guarding the bus door, and she had not even touched the bus before. There's going to be another one. The driver's Adam's apple trembled. He felt like the lives of everyone on the bus were in his hands, and the pressure was immense. With Chen Ge's persuasion, the woman in the red raincoat finally made her decision. However, just as her hand reached into the bus, the sound of children crying came from both sides of the road. Hearing this, the woman in the red raincoat seemed to be reminded of something extremely scary. She immediately pulled back her hand, and her bloodshot eyes looked at Chen Ge. After a few seconds, she turned and left the bus stop. What happened? The door closed, and the bus moved forward. Chen Ge looked at the empty bus stop and was confused. He walked to the driver's side with the hammer. Before he could say anything, the driver quickly explained, I don't know anything. I'm just a night driver, really. Since the driver had already said that, Chen Ge did not press for more information. He put the hammer back into his backpack, hugged the boy, and sat down next to the doctor. It's not like I've gained nothing. At least I've gotten closer to the woman in red raincoat. Chen Ge turned around and saw the doctor staring blankly at his backpack like he was still recovering from the incident that had just happened. It's the middle of the night, and I'm out alone, so of course I need to bring something to protect myself. What if I run into danger? Chen Ge gave his own reason. You have a point. The doctor hesitated before asking, you mentioned earlier, are the members of the Society of Strange Tales like you. Compared to them, I'm more rational. You're one of the more rational ones. The doctor coughed. His body was very weak. Yes, when you're free, you can call me. We can have a good chat then. Chen Ge felt like he got along quite well with this burn doctor, and the man seemed to be quite interested in him as well. The bus traveled through the rain and soon reached the next stop. Chen Ge stood up to look outside, but he did not see the woman in the red raincoat. Where has she gone? Has she run into some kind of trouble? There was the sound of children crying at the previous stop. I've heard this at Eastern Zhujiang's freshwater plant before. Has the shadow appeared again? Quote. When the shadow appeared, Meng Nan and Xu Yin had appeared at the same time to stop Chen Ge. This showed that a normal red specter was no match for the thing. She'll be fine, right? After worrying about the woman in the red raincoat, Chen Ge thought about himself. The bus connects Eastern Zhujiang and Western Zhujiang. It gathers the despairing people in the city. The woman in the red raincoat merely broke the rules, and something strange happened. If I drive the bus away, will the culprit in Eastern Zhujiang show up immediately? Quote. After giving it some thought, Chen Ge did not think that was possible. The culprit's real body is probably doing something very important, and that's why he used the shadow to set this up. But there's another possibility. The shadow itself is the culprit, and it doesn't have a real body. Or rather, its real body is heavily damaged, and everything it's doing now is to repair its real body. Quote. Chen Ge did not dare take the risk. He decided to drive the bus away to test the other party's reaction. Even if it's a greater red specter, it wouldn't dare come to Western Zhujiang to find me, right? At most, we'll just stay in the haunted house and wait for Zhang Ya's hand to recover before we come up with a plan. Quote. Chen Ge had always been a very optimistic person. Only with such a personality could he stay true to himself in such a complicated environment. The bus passed a few more stops before finally arriving at the last stop on the map, Liwan City. The bus stop was located at the west side of the town. It was very simple. The car came to a stop, and to Chen Ge's surprise, the woman in the red raincoat appeared again. However, she looked quite disheveled, as if she had just been through a fierce battle. The bus stopped at this last stop for 3 minutes, but not a single passenger got off. 3 minutes later, under the scrutiny of the woman in the red raincoat, the last bus entered Liwan City. This scene was similar to what Chen Ge had seen in the game. Xiao Biyu also got on the last bus after escaping from the woman in the red raincoat, and then he entered Liwan City. The blurry buildings slowly became clearer. The last bus drove on the empty road, and the whole town appeared to be uninhabited. There was no light or sound. We've passed the stop. Where do you plan to go? Chen Ge carried his backpack and walked to the driver. Whenever he heard Chen Ge's voice, the driver would shiver. The last stop is inside the small town. We haven't arrived yet. He wanted to drive the car to the station as soon as possible to drop Chen Ge off. However, strangely enough, he walked around the small town for a long time, but he could not find the stop sign. Are you lost? Sensing the hostility in Chen Ge's tone, the driver started to explain with a bitter face. I'm really not lying to you. There used to be a stop sign here, the last stop, but today, the sign suddenly disappeared. The driver pointed at an empty spot next to the junction. You said I'm lying to you, but what good does that do me? I wish to get you off as soon as possible, but we have a rule. We can only stop at the stop, or something bad will happen. Quote. Are you going to continue to wander around without a stop? The doctor stood up. He had not spoken earlier because it had nothing to do with him. Now that he could not find the stop sign and the bus did not stop, he would not be able to go to the ghost apartment to listen to his wife's voice. I want to stop the bus more than any of you. But we can't stop without a stop sign. If we stop randomly, something special will come up. The driver turned the bus around. Now the only solution I can think of is to return to the previous stop and stop there. If you still want to enter Liwan City, then come on your own. When the driver said that, he sneaked a glance at Chen Ge. He was worried that Chen Ge would have a different opinion, and reality proved that his worry was not unfounded. Let's stop here. Chen Ge pointed at the empty spot next to the junction. In the game, Xiao Bu's bus had stopped there. Everything matched the game, but the spot where there should have been a stop sign had turned into an empty spot. Once Chen Ge opened his mouth, the driver did not even have the desire to struggle. He obediently parked the car on the empty ground. We've reached the final stop. Please get out of the car. I cannot stay here for too long. Then he turned to look at Chen Ge politely, and his lips curled up into a smile of relief. I wish you a pleasant journey. Thank you. Chen Ge held his bag with one hand and turned to the driver. Since we're here, let's get off together. Together. The driver's smile froze on his face. My mission is to send you there safely. I need to drive the bus away later, so I won't be accompanying you. Just leave the bus here. There's no hurry. If not for the fact that there were living people on the bus, Chen Ge would have taken out the comic and summoned all his employees to make a move already. Seeing how determined Chen Ge was, the driver had no choice but to sigh internally at his bad luck. He just needed to get through this, there was no point in angering Chen Ge. Okay, I'll go with you. The driver pressed the switch, and the front and back doors of the last bus on Route 104 opened at the same time. The moment the doors opened, the 4 female patients in patient garb with their heads lowered, who had not shown any signs of abnormality along the way, suddenly charged out from the back door as if they had gone mad. Chen Ge stood next to the driver's seat. When he reacted, the 4 shadows had already disappeared from the street, and he had no idea which building they were hiding in. If he chased after them now, he would not be able to catch up, but Chen Ge did not mind it too much. Just run. I already know the name of your hospital. You can run, but you can't hide from me. He and Xu Yin guarded the front and back doors respectively. To prevent another accident, Chen Ge had the mentally challenged man and the burn doctor get off first and then close the door. Don't be nervous. There will be many chances for us to meet in the future. After the living people inside the bus left, Chen Ge took out the comic and summoned his employees one by one. He did not explain and walked to the last row of the bus. There was a sea of people, and the couple was spooked. They had calculated everything, but they did not expect to be robbed in their current state. It's very dangerous here. Why don't you follow me for now? Chen Ge did not ask for the couple's opinion. He had Yan Danian pull them into the comic. The couple only had a stronger lingering spirit, similar to Lao Zhou and Duan Yu, so Chen Ge was not worried that they would cause trouble. After dealing with the couple, Chen Ge led his employees to surround the hearse driver, Tang Jun. Tell me, why didn't you let me get on the bus when we were at the bus stop? The driver did not expect Chen Ge to be so vengeful. He refused to let him go even at the last bus stop. His facial features squeezed together, and the driver felt the pressure from all around him. He said shyly, Red specters are not allowed on the bus. Only the most despairing and lingering spirits can get on this bus. How did you know I have a red specter on me? Chen Ge glanced at the driver and did not dwell on that question. Who told you to drive this last bus? I don't know. The driver answered Chen Ge's question carefully. He had not been in this kind of situation before. Without Chen Ge asking, he told him everything. I'm a bus driver, and I used to drive the last bus on Route 104. There are many scary stories related to this last bus in our company. They say that the bus will run into many strange things, and many old people refuse to drive it. In the end, the leader had no choice but to give the last bus driver an extra 300 RMB monthly allowance. I'm quite brave, so I volunteered to be the last bus driver. Quote. What happened to you after that? Chen Ge stared at the driver's face. The man was probably not lying. The bus route on Route 104 is very long. It crosses Zhujiang and connects eastern Zhujiang and western Zhujiang. The first time I took the bus, the old driver whispered something to me. The driver looked at Chen Ge's face, and at that moment, he was even more regretful. He told me that when I drive the night shift, no matter whether there are people on the bus or not, when I pass the station, I have to open the doors at the front and back of the bus and stop for a while. He also told them not to park at any place other than the bus stop and not to park at a bus stop for more than 3 minutes. Last but not least, when it's raining, don't drive too fast. The slower, the better. Quote. The sweat on the driver's forehead increased. He kept wiping it with the towel on his shoulder, but it was to no avail. After a while, Chen Ge realized that it was not sweat, but water. As the conversation went on, the driver's face paled. His exposed skin was slightly swollen, like he had been soaked in water for a long time. I remembered the old driver's words. In the first few weeks, I followed his instructions strictly. No matter whether there were people on the bus or not, I would open the door and stop at the bus stop for a while. 1 month later, it was raining heavily. When I entered eastern Zhejiang, there was no one else on the bus. I was the only one on the bus. At the first few stops, I followed the driver's instructions and opened the door and stopped for a while. But then I thought about it, there was no one on the bus, and the bus stop was empty. Why would I open the door and close it? It was a waste of time. That day was similar to today. The rain got heavier, and I was in a hurry to get home. So, at the later stops, as long as there were no passengers, I would drive straight there. When I reached the stop behind the freshwater plant, I suddenly heard someone talking inside the bus. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but it sounded like they were telling me to stop. It was dark outside, and it wasn't at the bus stop yet, so I didn't stop it. After driving for a while, I suddenly realized something was wrong. There were no passengers on the bus. So, where did the voice come from? Quote. At this point, the driver's shoulders started to shake. He lowered his head, and his hands grabbed at his hair. The sweat that came from his forehead slid down his face. I felt like my whole body was frozen. I raised my head to look at the rearview mirror, and then I realized that there was someone standing behind me. His skin was white, and his eyes were about to pop out. The driver's face slowly turned upward. His skin was pale, and his eyes were bulging. It was similar to his own description. In my panic, I turned the steering wheel, and the bus fell into the river. The driver had a talent for telling stories. He finished in one breath and sneaked a look at Chen Ge. Seeing that Chen Ge did not show any sign of moving, he continued. I watched myself sink into the river, and after who knows how long, when I opened my eyes, I realized I was still on the last bus on Route 104. There was a shadow standing next to me, and it told me that after I carried 1,000 passengers, I would regain my freedom. Shadow. Can you describe the shape of his body and the tone of his voice? Quote. The shadow was the same size as me. It was like my own shadow had come to life. I could not describe his voice, or rather, after I heard it, I forgot it immediately. From the driver's tone and expression, he was probably not lying. This ghost sure is impenetrable. He is more difficult to deal with than any ghost that I've encountered before. If you wish to investigate the shadow, I can provide you with a piece of information. The driver's whole face looked scarily swollen. He had already removed his disguise. But you have to promise me one thing. What is it? Let me go. The driver looked at Chen Ge with anticipation. After something happened to me, my family must be very worried. I wish to go back to take a look. When the time comes, I can accompany you back. If you have any other wishes, tell me, and I will try my best to help you fulfill them. Chen Ge's attitude softened. He already treated the driver as one of his own. You will accompany me home. The driver could not guess Chen Ge's real thoughts. He had a feeling that this scary man before him might harm his family. After a long struggle, the driver sighed and gave up. I once asked the shadow why he sent all the passengers to Liwan City. He said that he was raising something at Liwan City, and he needed to inject pain and despair into it. Creating a door that went out of control and sending all the people of Zhejiang to this place just to raise something. Chen Ge memorized the driver's words. He asked a few more questions and then pulled the driver into the comic. The only passenger left on the bus was the middle-aged woman. She had witnessed Chen Ge's violence earlier, and she was very afraid. Don't waste any more time. Tell me everything you know. The middle-aged woman watched as the passengers disappeared one by one, and the anxiety in her heart reached its peak. I'm only responsible for sending the children to Liwan City. I don't know anything else. You don't know. Then there's no need for me to keep you. After saying that, Chen Ge had Shu Yin and the other employees surround the woman. The woman screamed. Her ugly face started to change, and her facial features became hideous. Bloodstains continuously seeped out of his rustic clothes. They were mottled with the handprints of a child. Let me off. The voice was hoarse and scary. The woman's bones cracked, and her body seemed to grow taller. Seeing the change on the woman, Chen Ge and the other employees were calm. It was like they were standing outside a cage, watching the beast roaring inside. It's fine if you want to get off, but you have to tell me, where have the children gone? Chen Ge promised the woman in the red raincoat that he would help her find the children within a week, and it had been 3 days. The woman did not seem to hear Chen Ge, and her face twisted. Interestingly enough, Chen Ge did not seem to notice the change on the woman at all. His voice was calm, and there was not a trace of emotion. Did you steal all these children? He pointed at the sleeping boy and looked at the young face. The woman seemed to realize that Chen Ge was the leader of all the ghosts, and Chen Ge had placed the hammer inside his backpack earlier, so his hands were empty. She stopped hesitating. Her venomous eyes stared at Chen Ge's neck, and then she leapt at him. His shirt was covered in blood. Chen Ge looked at the woman who was charging at him, and he did not even bother to dodge. Half-Red Spectre, looks like you're the strongest combatant in this 2-star trial mission. The woman was forced to stop halfway. Her body was completely frozen in fear. She did not know when, but there was an extra person standing between them. His clothes were as red as blood. There was no need for Chen Ge to say anything. Xu Yin was already standing in front of him. The last bus on Route 104 is a 2-star scenario, and the strongest person at that scenario is a half-red spectre. If that's the case, then there should be someone at Muyang High School who can rival a half-red spectre. Chen Ge still could not forget the old headmaster. After speculating that the old headmaster might be a half-red spectre, Chen Ge was even more tempted. After having Xu Yin control the woman, Chen Ge did not kill her directly. He planned to hand the woman over to the woman in the red raincoat. Every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. An eye for an eye. The woman did not know what Chen Ge was thinking. She only looked at the smile on Chen Ge's face and felt very creepy. After collecting the other employees into the comic, Chen Ge picked up the unconscious boy and got off the last bus on Route 104. When both of his feet touched the ground, the black phone vibrated. So, I've completed the mission. Chen Ge turned back to look at the last bus. The bus was empty. At the end of the mission, he was the last person to get off. With my current ability, I should be able to start a more difficult mission. Chen Ge could clearly feel the change in himself. For him several months ago, a 2-star scenario was like trying to find a chance of survival in a hopeless situation. He would be trembling in fear, and he could die at any moment. But now, the situation was completely different. Looks like my hard work has paid off. Chen Ge swiped the screen and clicked open the new message. Congratulations, Spectre's favored. Congratulations for completing the 2-star trial mission, the hearse. Mission completion rate is 100%. Obtained hidden item. Last bus on Route 104. Last bus on Route 104, a hearse that symbolizes misfortune and tragedy. It has been involved in many accidents and can only be used on rainy nights. Warning. Now you have 2 choices. Quote. 1. Unlock the 2-star scenario, the hearse, inside the maze of terror. After choosing this option, the hearse will never be able to leave the maze of terror. 2. Keep the hearse. This vehicle can only be used on rainy nights. When it passes the station, there is a chance to attract special passengers. After reading the message, Chen Ge chose the second option without hesitation. There would be more scenarios in the future, but there was only one hearse, and its special ability suited Chen Ge's taste. There was a chance to attract special passengers, and once such passengers boarded Chen Ge's last bus, they would not be able to get off. After confirming the choice, the black phone vibrated again. 2-star trial mission, the hearse has been completed. A new trial mission will be unlocked at the Castle of Nightmare. Unlockable scenarios increased. Twin water ghost, the big sister tied the rock to my leg. My body is sinking. I saw many black water plants in the dam. Scream rating, 2 stars. Ghost fire, the neighbor's house keeps making weird noises. The house is empty. Scream rating, 3 stars. Deep inside the tunnel, what's inside the tunnel? Scream rating, 3 stars. Liwan City's ghost town, mom, I'm Xiao Bu, scream rating, 3.5 stars. Ghost fetus, one day, I will become you. Scream rating, 4 stars. Xinhai Central Hospital's cursed game, in the abandoned hospital, There is such a wicked game about curses and death. Scream rating. 4 stars. The prerequisite mission has to be completed before it can be unlocked. The Black Phone updated 6 new trial missions, and the lowest difficulty was 2-star. However, the only thing that made Chen Ge frown was that the only 2-star trial mission appeared to be underwater. He knew how to swim, but it was not convenient to do so in water. The mission description is called Twin Water Ghost, so there should be more than one enemy. The mission description is quite strange. I saw many black water plants in the dam. Are those water plants or dead people's hair? The difficulty of the mission had obviously increased. Of the 2 newly unlocked 3-star scenarios, this was the first time he had heard of Ghost Fire, and the mission at the end of the tunnel should be related to the Nightmare mission. Chen Ge had met the Red Spectre in the tunnel once, so he felt like this mission was the easiest. If there's a chance, I should go and complete the mission at the end of the tunnel first. Perhaps my haunted house will attract another Red Spectre to join it. It was worth noting that the mission at Liwan City's ghost town that Chen Ge was slowly approaching had a scream rating of 3.5 stars. Chen Ge believed that the reason for this was because the door in Liwan City had gone out of control. After the door went out of control, the difficulty increased to 3.5 stars. Now that I think about it, even a door that has gone out of control is not as scary as a 4-star scenario. The last 2 missions were both 4-star, and that was completely out of Chen Ge's expectation. Eastern Zhejiang was much more dangerous than he had expected. Now there are 3 4-star trial missions on the list. There's no rush. I'll make my move after I'm fully prepared. Chen Ge calculated the opening time of the futuristic theme park in his mind. He wanted to complete the 4-star trial mission on the last few days of the theme park's opening and create a big news. After the hearse reached Eastern Zhejiang, 2 4-star missions and a 3.5-star trial mission were unlocked. This was something that Chen Ge did not expect. These few missions might be related. The culprit behind Eastern Zhejiang might be hiding in one of these scenarios. Chen Ge looked at the mission information on the black phone, and he could not calm himself down. Xinhai Central Hospital, I've never heard of this place before, and there's also the Ghost Fetus mission. Just from the name, I can't guess what the mission will be. Chen Ge was troubled. A peak 3-star scenario already had a monster, like Dr. Gao, so a 4-star scenario might have a greater red specter. The difference between a normal specter and a red specter was something that Chen Ge knew very well. Based on that, the power of a greater red specter would be much stronger than a normal red specter. Even a top red specter like Zhang Ya might not be their match. Chen Ge thought about all the specters that he had encountered after he obtained the black phone and tried to predict the power of a greater red specter. Lingering spirits cannot be communicated with. They are just thoughts that refuse to dissipate, and they are even afraid of people with strong yang energy. Normal specters do not dare appear in the day. Most of them reside in an item when they were alive and are unable to leave. However, a special type of specter is different. Each of them has their own special power. Even if their physical form is restricted, they can easily toy with a living person. Above that is a half-red specter. These specters that have the potential to become a red specter are all cruel and violent monsters. After going through so much trouble and finding their own heart, a half-red specter will become a real red specter. They will be able to control the strange blood vessels and possess many strange powers. I've seen Zhang Ya's fighting style before. It's similar to other red specters. The only difference is that her black hair is endless. Once you're caught by it, you'll be dragged into a black ocean of despair. Zhang Ya was undeniably the strongest specter on Chen Ge's body, but her attack was still within a certain category. She could only be considered one of the stronger red specters, there was no qualitative change. The black blood that the Society of Strange Tales obtained from the world behind the door seems to be useful for Zhang Ya, but after Zhang Ya consumed the black blood, she has obviously become more violent and scary. If she continues to consume the black blood, Zhang Ya might lose control. Chen Ge did not know what kind of attitude he should use to face this top red specter who lived in his shadow. Forget it, there's no point in thinking so much now. I'll think about it after I find the black bloodstains. The trial mission at Liwan City's ghost town had a 3.5-star difficulty, half a star higher than the underground morgue. Now that Zhangya was injured and Xu Yin had not found his heart, Chen Ge thought about it and decided not to initiate this mission. I should finish the first few 3-star missions first. I'll come back to this mission when I have more red specters. Chen Ge looked at the empty spot where the hearse was parked. The driver had said that there should have been a bus stop sign here, and he had seen a bus stop sign here when he was playing the game, but after he arrived at Liwan City, the bus stop sign had disappeared. From this detail, one could see many things. The specters hiding deep inside Liwan City should be afraid of Chen Ge. The driver said that his mission is to send a living person to Liwan City, and the other party is trying to cultivate something in Liwan City. The culprit is probably afraid that I'll mess things up and ruin their plan. The plan started several years ago. They transported the despair of eastern Zhejiang to a small town and purposely created a door that had gone out of control. With such a big plan, the culprit definitely wanted to cultivate something more than a red specter. Chen Ge was reminded of the countless children who had been killed in Liwan City in Fan Kong's game. His eyes moved down to look at the 4-star trial mission under the trial mission at Liwan City, Ghost Fetus. These two missions are probably related. Could that ghost fetus be the thing that the shadow has been cultivating in Liwan City? The ghost fetus was rated as a 4-star by the Black Phone, so there had to be something scary about it. However, Chen Ge had too little information, so he could not come up with any useful information. I still need to find Xiao Bu. Before I clear the game, I should temporarily stop the trial mission at Liwan City. Quote. The game corresponded to real life, and the scenarios in the game corresponded to the murders in real life. Chen Ge felt like if he could clear the game and master all the side quests, then when he returned to Liwan City to do the mission, it would be like holding a guide, and he would be able to avoid as much danger as possible. I'm still not powerful enough. His heart was feeling uneasy. The appearance of 2 4-star scenarios gave Chen Ge a sense of danger. I cannot let go of any chance that can increase the power of the haunted house. Chen Ge seemed to be reminded of something, and he carried the unconscious child back to the hearse on Route 104. Sitting in the driver's seat, Chen Ge tried to start the hearse. He realized that the car was very old, and it felt like it could fall apart at any moment. Stepping on the pedal, Chen Ge turned the car around. In the large Liwan City, there was not a single ray of light after midnight. Chen Ge personally drove down the quiet street. He drove the hearse to the entrance of Liwan City, and he saw a lone red shadow at a bus stop next to the road. After the car was parked, Chen Ge had Xu Yin carry the middle-aged woman down from the hearse. Once the middle-aged woman got out from the hearse, the eyes of the woman in the red raincoat immediately turned red, and she almost lost control. If you kill her, no one will know where your child is. Chen Ge stood before the woman in the red raincoat. The killing intent that exploded from the woman earlier was too much for him to handle. She has sent your child to Liwan City, but you'll have to ask her about the exact location. The woman in the red raincoat slowly calmed down. Her eyes moved away from the middle-aged woman to focus on Chen Ge. This was the first time that Chen Ge had studied the woman's face. There were small wounds on her neck and cheeks, and her lips were sewn shut by blood vessels. If she wanted to speak, she would have to endure the pain of her lips being torn apart. It's not easy for you. I really want to help you. I will leave this woman to you, and I hope that you can find out where your child is. Chen Ge sighed. You have your own reasons for not entering Liwan City, but if you want to find your child, you have to enter it. I don't expect you to listen to my orders or arrangements, but I just want to tell you that when the time comes, I will accompany you to find your child. Quote. The woman in the red raincoat was shaken, and Chen Ge added, after you find out where your child is, you can come find me at the haunted house at Western Zhejiang's New Century Park. As the leader of the Society of Strange Tales, I promise you that no matter how dangerous Liwan City is, I will accompany you to find your child. Then, Chen Ge had Xu Yin hand the middle-aged woman over to the woman in the red raincoat. I'll wait for your news. He did not stop at the bus stop and returned to the bus with Xu Yin. The woman's wail came from the bus stop. Blood leaked out from under the red raincoat, and it felt like threads were cutting into the middle-aged woman's flesh. Hearing the middle-aged woman's pleas, the woman in the red raincoat did not feel happy. Her red eyes stared at Chen Ge, and a complicated emotion floated across them. Chen Ge did not use the middle-aged woman as a bargaining chip to force her to do certain things. Instead, he handed the middle-aged woman over to the woman in the red raincoat. This action made the woman in the red raincoat's impression of him improve slightly. The bus left the bus stop and headed straight for Fan Kong's home. The rain outside lessened. Chen Ge removed the e-bike from the bus and pushed it into the residential area. After so long, it was already 2 a.m. Chen Ge was worried that he would disturb Fan Kong's sleep, so he sent a message to the man first. Not long after that, Chen Ge's phone vibrated. When Fan Kong saw the message, he called him directly. Mr. Chen, are you downstairs now? Yes, I hope I'm not disturbing you. I'm guessing you're still awake. Quote. It's raining outside. I'll go get you in a minute. Quote. There's no need. I'm here to ask you something. After hanging up, Chen Ge placed the e-bike back where it was and entered the stairwell with the key. When he reached the top floor, the door to Fan Kong's home was open. My brother is sleeping in the other room. He still has work tomorrow. When Fan Kong saw Chen Ge, he was very excited. Mr. Chen, I've played several more endings. There are hidden Easter eggs in the game. This time, I'm not here for the game. Chen Ge had not forgotten what had happened at Zhujiang's mental hospital. He wanted to visit Zhang Long's house in eastern Zhujiang. In the game, after Xiao Bu opened the door behind his classmate's closet, the style of the game started to change. If Xiao Bu's game was mirroring real life, then the door that had gone out of control in Liwan City was probably at Zhang Long's home. Chen Ge really wanted to see the difference between a door that had gone out of control and a normal door. Not for the game. You ran so far at night just to return the car. Fan Kong was dumbfounded. Returning the car is just one aspect. Come, let's talk inside. Chen Ge stood in the stairwell with his backpack. He had a feeling that the stairwell was eerie, as if something was eavesdropping on him from the bottom. After the door was closed, Fan Kong brought Chen Ge a towel. You're soaking wet. Why don't you change into my clothes first? There's no need. Chen Ge cut to the chase. Fan Kong, you've played Xiao Bu's game before. Do you realize that the building where Xiao Bu's classmate lives is very similar to the one in your residential area? Initially, Fan Kong did not think so, but when Chen Ge pointed it out, his eyes slowly widened. That's true. The residential area that Xiao Bu's classmate lives in is similar to our residential area. I plan to visit Xiao Bu's classmate's home tonight. Chen Ge stood inside the room. His clothes were wet, so he did not sit down. Visit Xiao Bu's classmate's home. In real life, Fan Kong still could not keep up with Chen Ge's train of thought. He had no idea what Chen Ge was up to. I've already contacted the police. Xiao Bu's classmate is currently staying at the mental hospital. I've also found out the exact location of his home. Chen Ge's words confused Fan Kong even more. Mr. Chen, aren't you the owner of a haunted house? How come you've contacted the police? Quote. Don't worry, I did not reveal any information about the game. The reason I contacted the police is because of a dismemberment case. Dismemberment case. Fan Kong's face blanched. Yes, it's not far from here, at Mingyang residence. Not far from here. Yes, the killer has not been caught, but I have a suspect. When Chen Ge was conversing, he did not consider Fan Kong's feelings. He ignored the impact that words like murder and dismemberment would have on a normal person. Hearing that Chen Ge was going to do something so big, Fan Kong became nervous. Then how should I cooperate? Based on my investigation, I can confirm that Xiao Bu's classmate's home is on the first floor of the first building. You and your brother have stayed here for so long, have you noticed anything strange? The first building was opposite the building that Fan Kong lived in. Normally, he only needed to pull back the curtains to see it. I don't think there's anything wrong with the building, but you're giving me the creeps, Fan Kong replied with a bitter smile. There's no rush. Take your time to think about it. When your brother wakes up tomorrow, you can ask him or the other old tenants here. Chen Ge did not expect to find anything the moment he arrived. This is the key to the electric bike. I've left it on the table. Your bike has done a great job tonight. Fan Kong did not know what Chen Ge was talking about. He thought about it and waved at Chen Ge. Come with me. I've thought about it, and the building opposite us is a bit strange. The two entered the bedroom, and Fan Kong pulled back the curtains. Liwan City is at the easternmost part of eastern Zhejiang. Many people have moved away. Two-thirds of the buildings here are empty. Fan Chong pointed at the building across from them. When my brother and I first moved here, we planned to move into apartment 1. The rent for that building is much cheaper than the other 3 buildings, but the owner of the building that we are currently living in told me that apartment 1 is not a safe place. Something bad will happen if you move in there. Over the past few years, many people have mysteriously disappeared. Chen Ge was instantly reminded of the door that had gone out of control. He suspected that those people had entered the door. Yes, I saw them move in, but one day, they never came out again. I don't know if they have moved away or something else. Quote. Didn't any of you call the police? There's no point in calling the police. Eastern Zhejiang is close to the county, and most of the people here are from other places. The police usually come to confirm whether it's a murder case or not. After confirming that there are no signs of struggle and everything is normal, they will leave. After some time, people don't think it's a big deal anymore. After all, we've gotten used to it. Quote. Other than that, what else happened? Chen Ge stared at the first floor of the first building. The windows there were all sealed. Were those sealed by the police? Yes, there used to be someone living on the first floor of the building. It was an old lady who lived alone. She often told people that she would see a child standing outside the window at night. The people in the residential area saw that she did not seem to be lying, so they purposely sent people to wait for the child. Quote. And the result? Chen Ge was curious. The mention of a child would link him to the ghost fetus mission. Fan Kong shook his head. Actually, there's no such thing as a child. The old lady is probably old and confused. The people waited for a whole night, but they did not see the child. In the end, when they entered the old lady's room, they realized that the window was covered in oil and mud. It was impossible to see outside the window from inside the room. Quote. Impossible to see outside the window. Chen Ge thought about it. Could it be that the child has been standing inside the room? The bedroom suddenly became quiet. Fan Kong looked at Chen Ge's face. He had forgotten what he had wanted to say earlier. Probably not. After a long time, Fan Kong forced a smile. Every time he was with Chen Ge, he would remind himself to be calm and collected, but he would still be shocked by what Chen Ge said and did. The doors and windows of the old lady's house are still intact. The child couldn't have suddenly appeared inside the house. Could it be that he sneaked into the house when the old lady was out and then hid somewhere inside the house, waiting for the old lady to fall asleep at night before he came out from his hiding place? How come you're getting scarier? Fan Kong could not keep up with Chen Ge's train of thought. This was not a scary thing, but once Chen Ge brought it up, his heart chilled. I'm just deducing based on the limited clues and coming up with the most likely scenario. Even if that's the case, why would the child go to the old lady's house at night? A prank. Theft. Quote. Chen Ge looked at the opposite building, and his eyes focused on the seal. Very few children would go and prank an old lady. A thief is possible, but the chance of that is not high. By the way, was the child that the old lady saw a boy or a girl? Is that important? Fan Kong thought for a while before saying, I remember it was a girl. A girl. Chen Ge turned around and glanced at the game on screen. Could it be that Xiao Biyu has returned? Chen Ge's thoughts jumped so much that before Fan Kong could wrap his head around it, Chen Ge continued. The first floor of the first building is where Xiao Bu's classmate lives. If the game corresponds to real life, then Xiao Biyu might appear there. After all, that is where the door is. He stopped hesitating. I want to go to that building to take a look. Do you want to come with me? Now. Fan Kong shivered. It's not a good idea to go there at 2 a.m., is it? There are too many people during the day, and I'll feel restricted doing anything. It's better at night. Mr. Chen, it's not that I'm timid. Fan Kong picked up the bottle of Coke on the table and took a sip. It appeared as if he was trying to use this method to ease his anxiety. The old lady passed away not long after she saw the child. It was a sudden heart attack. When the ambulance arrived, the old lady was already on her last legs. I was there too. I heard from the paramedics that the old lady was old and had a sudden heart attack. Under such circumstances, it was almost impossible for her to make an emergency call. Originally, I didn't think much of it, but after talking to you today, the more I thought about it, the more I thought about it. The old lady lived alone in the house. When she lost her ability to move, who would help her make an emergency call? Quote. Doesn't this mean that the child she saw had no intention of harming her? He was probably just passing by. Big brother, aren't you being too optimistic? Fan Kong shook his head. I don't think it's safe to go there now. Forget it. You should stay here. Let's keep in touch. If you see anything strange appear upstairs, remember to tell me on the phone. After saying that, Chen Ge grabbed his backpack and walked out. Fan Kong wanted to persuade him, but looking at Chen Ge's back, he did not know how to start. Walking out from the stairwell, Chen Ge stood alone in the dark residential area. Liwan City's difficulty is 3.5 stars. The final opponent will definitely be stronger than Dr. Gao. If I can find Xiao Bu and unite all the victims, the success rate of this mission will greatly increase. From how Chen Ge saw it, it was an accident that Xiao Bu pushed open the door. Even though the door that had gone out of control was probably the reason why Liwan City had ended up like this, the culprit was not Xiao Bu. She was also a victim. Arriving at the first building, Chen Ge entered the stairwell. There were 2 rooms on the first floor, one on the left and one on the right. The old lady lived in the one on the west side, and Zhang Long lived in the one on the east side. Looking at the rusted and dusty iron door, Chen Ge pulled open the zipper of his backpack, pressed the play button on the recorder, and took out his phone to call Fan Kong. Fan Kong, I've entered the stairwell, and I have something to confirm with you. What is it? Are there any tenants in the first building? Chen Ge reached out to grab the handle of the hammer. If there were no tenants or all the tenants lived on the top floor, then he would consider using brute force to open the door. A few days ago, I saw the lady on the 3rd floor going out to buy groceries. There should be people living there, but there are only 2 or 3 tenants. Fan Kong's answer disappointed Chen Ge. He let go of the hammer and pulled up the zipper of the backpack. Why do you ask? If there are people living there, then I'll have to pay more attention. Chen Ge walked out from the stairwell. He grabbed the backpack and leaned against the window to look inside. Mr. Chen, it's already 2 a.m. What if someone sees you leaning against the window? How scary would that be? If you continue to talk nonsense, I'm going to hang up. Chen Ge's pupils narrowed. He used yin-yang vision to inspect the situation inside the room. The room had 2 bedrooms and 1 living room, and it was about 80 square meters. The interior decoration was simple, but there were many small handmade crafts on display. The place had its own style, and it was clear that the person who lived there had a passion for life. He was a happy and elegant person. The interior decoration was completely different from the story that Chen Ge knew, and it did not match Zhang Long's identity. To open the door, one has to make a person fall into complete despair, from the heart to the body. Chen Ge believed that when Zhang Long first interacted with Xiao Bu's mother, he had probably promised her something to make Xiao Bu's mother fall in love with him. When she was immersed in happiness, he would change into a different face to bring her despair and cruelty. Moving his gaze, Chen Ge saw the cupboard in the living room. Outside the cupboard was a happy life, but inside it was imprisonment and torture. This extreme contrast was just like in Xiao Bu's game. Before the style changed, it was sunny and vibrant, but after the style changed, it was filled with murderers and ghosts, and everything had become twisted and twisted. The door that has gone out of control should be here. Chen Ge walked for a long time before he realized that the window of the bathroom had been smashed. Perhaps the child had accidentally kicked it when he was playing football. I should go in from here. Chen Ge took out the hammer to widen the gap. He reached out to unlock the window and entered the room. He summoned Xu Yin to follow behind him. Then, he walked into the living room and pushed the cupboard open. It's similar to the game. There was a wooden board under the cupboard that was the same color as the floor tiles. After pulling it open, a secret passage was revealed. The space down here is quite big. Chen Ge studied the wooden board for a while. He believed that this was not the door that Xiao Bu had pushed open, so he prepared to enter the underground room to take a look.